to decide in advance what colors. And then you go into the yard and you have one night to paint. And if you run out of black, for example, there's no way you're going to be able to finish. I started photographing when I was in kindergarten, when I was about 3, because my father owned a camera store, and he gave me a camera when I was just a little girl. And so I became good at it at a young age, so that when I went to school, I took pictures for the school newspaper. When I went to camp, I took pictures at camp. I guess it was something that I could do that most other people didn't know how to do it, because in those days it was hard to understand about the film and the ISO and you had to do all the manual. There was nothing automatic in the first cameras, so you had to focus it yourself, you had to change the aperture yourself. And I grew up learning all of those things from my father, and so I think it was just because it was something that made me a little bit special. New York is, I live in New York City. New York is my favorite place. There's no place that I like better than New York. And sometimes I think it's important to go to places and see things with a fresh eye. I think it is important. I'm interested more in historic preservation. I like to take pictures that I think show something about the world today that we can look at in the future and see how things were. So I am thinking, when I take pictures, I think ahead to, is the subject something that will be of interest to people in the future? For example, street art and graffiti are perfect subjects for still photography, because it allows you to study the art in a way that you probably can't see. So I think that it's a way of allowing people to see something that they wouldn't be able to see otherwise. And street art and graffiti don't last long. So photography becomes the way we can look at it, preserve it, talk about it, and it becomes part of history. I was so interested that young people, young kids, had basically invented their own art form. They were doing something that only they understood, and also at the time other people didn't understand it. So it was a challenge for me to figure out what they did, how they did it, to sort of enter this world. And I had been in college, I had studied art, and then I had worked in a museum, so I was interested in all kinds of different art. So for me, this was to see these kids in an urban environment, not just somewhere out, and that they wanted to do this so much that they were able to risk the fact that, risk getting caught. I think that really was the thing that was most interesting to me, that they wanted to do this art. It was like pure art because they weren't selling it. I thought it was very specific to New York because of the yards were unguarded. The city didn't have any money at the time. There are many reasons why it kind of happened then in New York, and I thought, well, this would never, it could never go anyplace else. So this is a surprise to me, but apparently this kind of art has a broad appeal, like worldwide, internationally, obviously. So I think a lot of people see not so much me as the book, subway art, that got them into graffiti, and they are enjoying what they're doing, so they see me as the person that got them started. That's my explanation. Because, when you think about art and museums,
and the importance of museums. And I mean, especially here, look in St. Petersburg, where you have like some of the most famous art in the most famous museums in the world. If people are overlooking this art and not thinking that this is worthy of keeping, and they don't have the pictures, then it is going to disappear. Street artists and their work definitely deserves to be maintained in a museum, in an important museum, and I think what you're doing here is important. Yeah. I know. So what's happening now? What am I missing? I don't, somebody else I think is going to have to photograph. Whatever, there must be something new, but I don't know what it is. So you have to go find that. Tell him, you have to go look for the next trend.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Are we finished? Cut.